everybody, welcome back to Tales from the Narc Side. My name is Sharon and I'm really happy that you're here. Every Tuesday we talk about the things that narcissists really do, the repulsive, repugnant, abhorrent, offensive, demonic doings of narcissists. Essentially, on this channel, we accept that narcissists are incompatible with life. They're non-viable, demonic entities, and that's the starting point of every video. So if you're on board with that, let's get into today's video. One of my earliest memories was watching Princess Diana get married. I can remember it despite being very young. I was on vacation at the Cape at the time, Cape Cod. I remember nothing else about the trip. I was so young, but I remember that wedding. I can remember it so clearly. I can see the room I was in, everything. I was completely enamored. And when I think about it now, it reminds me of when my daughter first saw Cinderella's castle at Disney World, and she asked me if it was real. She couldn't believe her eyes. It would have been inconceivable, literally beyond belief, to know that less than 10 years later, that exact same princess would be sitting at home with only her butler and the TV for company on Christmas. Watching Diana, who got married at only 19 years old, walking down the aisle on the arm of her father with yards and yards of billowing silk taffeta flowing behind her, it would have been, again, beyond belief to know that just like she ended up losing her kids to her husband's family, the exact same thing happened to her mother, Frances Shand Kydd. I used to believe in fairy tales, knights in shining armor, that people are generally good, that people who are supposed to love you always do. I no longer believe that. There's a cop that I follow on Instagram, and he gives fantastic advice to women. He kind of just tells you how men really think. One of the things he said recently, that there is a key difference between men and women, and it is that men, unlike women, men understand and know that men are dangerous, that men are aggressive, that they go into the world expecting confrontation. Today I'm going to tell you about Princess Diana's mother and the tremendous price she paid for marrying, in my opinion, for entertainment purposes only, a narcissist, Diana's father. Later, she watched her daughter, Diana, suffer the exact same fate. Narcissism is always your worst nightmare, point blank. However, the wealthier and more powerful narcissists have more at their disposal to use, and those narcissists can sometimes reach their full narcissistic potential. They don't have a conscience to hold them back. It's open season on you. Frances Ruth Roche was born on January 20th, 1936. She was born into the British aristocracy, and her family's highest goal for her was to marry well. And at just 18 years old, she married Edward John Spencer, who later inherited the title of Earl Spencer from his father. Now, this was a very high society wedding. It was upper class. The Queen was at the wedding, if that tells you anything. Unfortunately, they did not settle into wedded bliss. Earl Spencer needed a son. This seems extremely old-fashioned, even shocking, but this was important. The Spencer family is one of Britain's most prominent families, and for families like that, in order to preserve power and keep the estate intact, males are crucial. I think even to this day, females, so if there were no boys, if there were no sons, females can inherit the estate, but generally it's split between them. But in an aristocracy, the oldest male inherits the estate, I think is how it works. So it was very important. But Frances had a daughter, then another daughter, and finally a son. This son only lived for 10 hours, and despite desperately wanting to see and hold her son, Frances was absolutely denied, told no. She never even got to lay eyes on her child. This haunted her for the remainder of her life. At this point, Frances was sent away to a clinic to assess her defectiveness. Why couldn't this useless woman successfully give birth to a boy, the next Earl Spencer? So this woman was grieving in deep grief for her child that she never got to see, and she was ripped away from her daughters and sent to some clinic to try to find out what was wrong with her. Her next child was Diana. Earl Spencer was so convinced that it was going to be a boy, remember, she was at the fancy clinic, that no girl names were even considered. Frances did not share her husband's sentiments. She loved her daughters and was delighted with Diana. Actually, you know what? I do want to say, I do believe that Earl Spencer loved his children. He just really, really wanted a son. So I do think he loved his daughters. I don't want to make it seem like he didn't love his daughters, but having a son was the most important thing. So when Diana was born, this was not good news. And it broke her heart. It broke her mother's heart, Frances's heart, that the day that her daughter was born, it wasn't a joyous occasion for anybody else. It's actually very striking when you compare the way that people thought when Diana entered the world and when she exited. If you were alive when Diana died, and she died in 1997, you may remember the massive amounts of flowers laid out by her home. It was crazy. I remember airplanes going over, and it seemed like there were miles of flowers. Like, I can't believe there were any flowers left in Britain. They must have flown them in from other places. I lived in California. Actually, it was almost like the whole world stopped for a whole week after she died. I lived in California when she passed away, and I can remember getting up in the middle of the night to watch her funeral. Let me know in the comments if you remember that. Diana had been born in 1961. Finally, in 1964, a son who lived was born, and the heir was finally here. But that did absolutely nothing to help the marriage of Diana's parents. Earl Spencer was cruel to his wife. Diana herself recalled seeing her father slap her mother across the face, while she, Diana, cowered behind a door. Frances may have been living in a beautiful home, but it was really a prison with nice amenities. In 1966, she met Peter Shand Kydd. He also was in an unhappy marriage. They ended up having an affair that ended both their marriages. Now, she had hoped to have a trial separation, and she moved into a London home with her two youngest. The older girls were at school. During Christmas break, when they were spending time with their father, he struck. Earl Spencer refused to send the kids back. He initiated a divorce, and he used his power, money, and prestige to retain full custody of the kids. Her two youngest were still very young. Frances had expected to be able to retain custody because she was their mother and their primary caregiver, and in a typical situation, she likely would have. But Frances was not in a typical situation. She was married to a powerful man who was a narcissist, and he was living a dream case scenario for any narcissist: the desire to have the desire and the ability to fully annihilate their partner. Checkmate. Frances went from raising her children to seeing them on school breaks. I don't even want to contemplate that pain. Diana and her younger brother both recalled the trauma and pain of their childhood. They essentially lost their mother. Their father got remarried, and they were sent away to boarding school. Their childhood, it ended. It was suddenly over one day when they were very young. This happens to many children in narcissistic situations. Diana later was determined at any cost not to put her own kids through a divorce. As you probably know, she wasn't able to protect her kids from that either. When you are the daughter-in-law, your value is limited. Remember that. It's way more common for women to marry up. And this doesn't mean it's just a reality. A female doctor is not likely to marry the male receptionist. You may hear of a stewardess or air host, whatever you want to say. You may hear of a female air host marrying a pilot, but you would be unlikely to hear of a female pilot marrying a male steward, whatever you want to say. So when things go wrong, if a woman isn't protected by her own family and she marries into one of these wealthy families, these families with more power than she has, and especially always if you're dealing with a narcissist at this point, narcissists get together. They're like family packs. They annihilate together, and you will stand up alone against them if you don't have any support on your own. That's something to remember. I learned this the hard way. When you're the daughter-in-law, no matter what your in-laws say, you are always going to be the outsider when things go wrong. I really admire Diana's mother. she was given a lot to deal with in her life. If you look at her life from the outside, it seems amazing. Wow, here's this rich woman, you know, born into the aristocracy. She lived in a big mansion. Her daughter became a princess. She was supposed to become Queen of England. I mean, how amazing is this? You would think anybody looking at it from the outside would think she lived a charmed life, but that wasn't how it was at all. Now, she later did marry Peter Shand Kydd, and they were married for a long time, 15 years or so. Eventually, they got divorced, and this happened when she was in her 50s, and at that point, they had moved to Scotland. She decided to stay in Scotland, and she just wanted to live a simple life. She ended up opening up a little gift shop where she sold local things to tourists. She converted to Catholicism, which was a huge deal considering, if you don't know this, the royal family are the head of the Church of England. So her grandson, who is Prince William right now, eventually he'll become king. He's the head of the Church of England. So to have his grandmother convert to Catholicism, but she did that, and she was really active in it. She was helping. She used to take sick children to Lourdes to have miracle healing, to hopefully have miracle healing. I just feel like she tried to live the best that she could, and she was dealt a lot of bad hands, and maybe she made some mistakes, but ultimately, I just think she was a good woman. I admire her, and I feel sorry for what had happened to her. And then she witnessed her daughter pass away, and imagine watching her daughter go through exactly the same things that she did. She got married, she was in this family, and they turned on her. She ended up losing her kids, and then ultimately her life. So thank you so much for listening to this. I appreciate it. You know, my whole point with these Tuesday videos is to tell you, one story at a time, one tale at a time, what narcissists do, who they really are, what you're really dealing with. Remember what I said at the beginning of the video. They are incompatible with life. They cannot exist within anybody's life and have a happy existence. So thank you so much for watching this. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful day. I will see you guys later on today with my shorts. I will be back Friday with Tales from the Narc Side. I mean, not Tales from the Narc Side. What am I talking about? True Crime Friday. Today's Tales from the Narc Side. Friday, True Crime Friday. Shorts throughout every day. Bye, everybody.
Cope with it. So I'm just wondering from a mother's point of view, how you even began to cope in a way.
Well, I suppose in two completely different ways. The world was very touching but slightly overwhelming. You see, I don't think Diana probably ever realised how much she was loved and known all over the world.
You have a particularly strong faith. Did you find that faith saw you through and I assume has still been seeing you through?
Oh, very much strengthened. I've had the great blessing that really ever since the night Diana died, I've never been angry with anyone, ever. I think that's probably what they call a disaster recipe for therapists. But that's me. I mean, in counselling and therapy, you're meant to get cross, otherwise you can't go on to the next chapter. So I don't know quite what they do with me who hasn't done that chapter.
I just want to finish on the whole aspect of your favourite memories of her, because we all have our favourite memories. I just want those special moments in your life, really, that you look back on.
I think they were when she wasn't known by the world, because I, as her mother, need some part of her. I made her. She grew beneath my heart. And so those memories that I have, which no one else knows about, are the most precious. And don't ask me what they are, because I ain't going to tell you.